Good evening. I'm Frank McGee in New York. John Chancellor will be reporting from Washington. Here is the news. Today, the United States, Israel, and the Palestinian guerrillas all hardened their positions on the remaining hostages, most of them American Jews, the guerrillas still hold. Late today, the White House said their continued detention is totally unacceptable to the United States, that an American's passport is evidence in itself of United States citizenship, that the United States will permit no distinctions between its citizens on any basis. The guerrillas had said earlier they would treat the estimated 38 Americans they still hold not as Americans but as Israelis in order to force Israel into agreeing to an exchange of prisoners. And their stand, in turn, was prompted by word that Israel would impose the death penalty on Arab sympathizers it had arrested in occupied territories. Israel has not confirmed this threat carried by a Jordanian doctor who said he was sent by the Israelis to Amman, Jordan, to spread the warning. Yesterday, Israeli security forces rounded up more than 450 Arabs, some in occupied Jordan, some in the Gaza Strip. They were taken to Jerusalem for questioning. Some were held as suspected guerrillas, others on the ground they had information about the guerrilla movement. 80 women were among those detained. Today, Israel announced the release of 70 people. Israeli patrols moved through the occupied areas throughout the day yesterday, making arrest and questioning hundreds of Arabs. Some of those arrested were reportedly relatives of Palestinian guerrillas operating in Jordan. Israel's Foreign Minister Abba Eban defended the roundup at a news conference today. The normally calm diplomat showed unusual emotion.
Well, I can't confirm that number, but they are held under Israeli security regulations for interrogation as part of an effort to get at the root of the activity of the organization of saboteurs and of hijackers, so that the inquiry will be made as quickly as possible, and of course detention or release will flow from the results of the inquiry. I stress the speed with which the inquiry will be carried out, and of course those who have nothing to add by their presence under detention will be released. Mr. Beerland, please.
Is not Israel in danger of playing into the hands of Arab extremists by adopting a policy of mass arrests on the West Bank and making the so far relatively mild occupation seem in the eyes of the world oppressive?
Nonsense. Absurd.
Is this not the impression which may be...
Ridiculous.
Is this not the impression that may be conveyed?
Here we have a policy which has brought about peaceful coexistence between Israelis and hundreds of thousands of the Arab residents of the West Bank, despite all the agitation and incitement from these terrorist organizations.
The State Department said today that of the 38 Americans still held hostage, perhaps half of them have dual nationality. That is, they are citizens of both the United States and Israel, or so consider themselves. And the question of dual citizenship came up in an interview with crew members of one of the planes still held hostage. They were asked first, however, about reports the guerrillas had taken things from their passengers and then pilfered through the wreckage of the planes.
There's been no pilfering, no stealing, and we've questioned each passenger, examined as to what was taken, and the only things that were confiscated were Israeli products. Other than that, nothing, even valuable items, weren't taken.
We stayed there while they went through the baggage. We, in the crew, watched them go through the baggage. Nothing was taken other than things purchased in that land. We talked to everybody when they got out. We watched them take things out of the suitcase. We have our watches, we have our wallets with all of our money. They have taken nothing from us. They have been very good to us. Very good. We have as much food or more than they give to their people. We have fresh water. Doctors see us. We are fine. We do have one concern. It's come to our attention that many Americans, Jewish Americans, are allowed to have two passports. To the best of my knowledge, nobody else is allowed to have this thing. We were quite shocked when this was brought out to us.
And there were many on the airplane.
There were many, yes.
And a lot of them
The
were thrown
people
away.
on the airplane behaved well, and we're very proud of the way they behaved.
But they threw away the passports, you say?
Some passports were cast aside and found and put us in a bit of a predicament, but everybody was nice to us.
What do you know now about the Palestinian problem?
We've learned quite a bit. That is a thing in politics that we really can't discuss, but we've learned quite a bit. Let's put it that way.
I'll fly with him anyway.
So we ask you no answer to that question. Otherwise, you'll be out. We said reasonable question.
Yes, and we haven't been intimidated or instructed in any way.
Not in any way, and I wish you'd all accept that.
The U.S. government believes at least 19 of the American hostages are also Israeli citizens. Millions of Americans are citizens of more than one country because different nations have different laws on who is a citizen. One does not cancel out the other. Although the State Department discourages persons with a U.S. passport from carrying others as well, there is no law against it. The U.S. government says it considers anyone with an American passport to be principally an American. The rule of international law is to look at two things: where does the person live, actually, or when the question arises, with which country is he most closely connected. By either test, the U.S. may claim the hostages are not Israelis. It may be difficult, however, to argue that if any of the 19 or so belong to the Israeli military. 3 years ago, in a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled the United States could not cancel the citizenship of an American who ran for office in a foreign country or joined its army, and since then it has been easier for Americans to participate in Israeli affairs. Carl Stern, NBC News, Washington.
97 hijacked victims, most of them Americans, are flying to New York tonight on a TWA plane. On the way, they stopped in Rome.
Most of them Americans in this last plane load home. In spite of their ordeal, they looked good after a night's sleep in Cyprus. During their 2-hour stay in Rome, the passengers talked to newsmen. All said they'd been well treated by the guerrillas, even the Jewish passengers. But there were practically no men on board, and that was the big concern, because many of the men were still being held.
My husband is still there. Several of our husbands are being held, and some of them sons.
Apparently the governments involved say that they're going to work together and demand the release of all, and they will not negotiate separately. Do you go along with that?
Well, I guess I would have to, because we want them all out. I don't think it'd be fair to take part in not all.
Now, there has been one story that the guerrillas have threatened to start shooting the hostages one by one until their demands are met. Do you think they do that?
I don't see how they can keep from being trigger happy, because everybody has a gun. They were all around us day and night. And if one shot were fired, you don't know what might happen. I can't say that they wouldn't do it. I say that it's possible that they would. I personally feel that they would have to feel pushed extremely far to do that. I feel that they would like to avoid that sort of thing at all costs. I believe them and I trust them when they say that they won't be harmed.
Was there any talk among the passengers that they should hang together and not accept release until everyone was released?
We assumed that we were all going to be all released together because it wasn't a matter of someone being released and others left behind. The men who were separated from us were removed from us. It was not that they were released and we were behind. The girls who were left behind, we had no idea that they weren't coming with us, and when we discovered it, we were all shocked. And we did say that had we known, we never would have left the plane unless we would have gone together.
Those with relatives still being held were advised to wait it out at home, so they left too, but with deep concern. Nobody could give them any assurance as to the eventual fate of those they left behind. David Burrington, NBC News, Rome.
The net effect of today's developments is to center attention on the special relationship that exists between the United States and Israel, particularly American Jews and Israel, to try to isolate the U.S. and Israel from other governments who have citizens among the hostages and who are holding guerrillas in jail, as the United States is not. John? The Egyptians continued to criticize the Arab guerrillas today, calling them a Palestine maverick group. The newspaper El Ahram says the hijackings have caused great harm to the Palestinian movement. Israeli Foreign Minister Abba Eban says his country is opposed to exchanging guerrillas imprisoned in Israel and Western Europe, but said Israel nevertheless would go along with an international agreement if one is reached. Eban also said that the hijackings, plus the forbidden Russian missiles, make the chances of peace in the Middle East less good. He said that Israel made its 14th complaint of ceasefire violations today at the Suez Canal.
This is NBC Nightly News, Monday, September 14th, 1970. Brought to you by Ocean Spray Cranberry Juice Cocktail. Tangy, delicious, in a mix or by itself. Ocean Spray is the start of something big.
Cranberry juice for breakfast?
Cranberry juice, great for breakfast. Tingly.
Cranberry juice gives me more food energy than orange juice. My customers start every day with Ocean Spray.
Ocean Spray Cranberry Juice Cocktail has more food energy than orange juice.
Orange juice? We like cranberry juice better.
Ocean Spray Cranberry Juice Cocktail, the other breakfast juice.
For the family with a sweet tooth, there should be only one kind of toothbrush. Picopay, the anti-cavity toothbrush. Picopay was designed and is recommended by more dentists than any other toothbrush. Picopay, for people who love to eat sweets but hate to get cavities.
So you soak your dentures, and you sit and wait. You can't go anywhere. You're trapped. 5, 10, 15 minutes. But you could have brushed those dentures so much cleaner with Denture Cream. During the 40 seconds of this message, you could have applied Denture Cream, brushed your dentures cleaner than if you'd soaked them all night, put the cap back on the Denture Cream, and tasted the toothpaste freshness in your mouth. Or you could soak and wait and wait.
In Amman, some of the negotiating for the release of the hostages is being carried on by the Swiss ambassador there at the request of the countries involved, and the International Committee of the Red Cross, which backed out of the situation at one point, is now back in, acting on behalf of the governments of the United States, Britain, France, Germany, and Israel. There's a Vatican representative in Amman and a man from the British Arab Friendship Society. All of these people are presumably talking with guerrilla representatives who themselves have not shown great coordination in the past few days. One spokesman for the Popular Front said today that the front was negotiating directly with the West Germans for the release of its hostages in exchange for guerrillas held in Germany. The other guerrillas are held in Switzerland and England.
Prime Minister Heath held another meeting of his high command here today to discuss the deadlock and release of the hostages still held, including 8 Britons. The British are standing by their all-or-nothing position. The Arab girl held here will be released only when the commandos agree to turn loose all the hostages they hold, including the Israelis. The British have taken a hard line all along and are in no position to make a separate deal. No one here is saying anything publicly about the Israeli roundup of 450 Arabs as counter-hostages, but the feeling is this makes the joint solution more difficult. Leila Khaled, the hijacked girl her commando friends are so anxious to see released, remains in this West London jail despite the comings and goings of various police vans. She says nothing about the hijacked attempt, but talks plenty about the Palestinian cause. Ray Scherer, NBC News, London.
The man who was with Miss Khaled when she tried to hijack the Israeli passenger plane and who was killed in that attempt turns out to have been, of all things, an American. He has been identified through fingerprints as Patrick Joseph Anguello, with an American mother and a Nicaraguan father who went to UCLA and schools in Chile and Switzerland. He was 27 years old. Anguello's parents live in Managua, Nicaragua.
Negotiations for the release of the remaining hostages went on all day Sunday in Amman. Among others pleading for an early release are two Vatican envoys, Bishop Nime Saman, who is Bishop of Amman, and Monsignor Jean Rodin, who is head of the Catholic relief agency Caritas. They conferred with leaders of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine at guerrilla headquarters here in Amman, but had little to say after their meeting.
Did you ask the front to release them or anything along the way?
Well, we found them comprehensive and reasonable. And the meeting was very encouraging. That's all we can say now.
To the Swiss airplane.
One of the 57 remaining hostages was freed unexpectedly. He is Gerrit de Koning, a Dutch engineer who lives in Oman.
Why were you freed? Do you know?
Just because of my nationality.
How about the other people?
Do you think that they have achieved anything by this hijacking?
Oh, they have, really. I believe that they have come into the news much better than they were before.
How about the people who stayed behind and may still be killed? How do you feel about them?
I don't believe that they will be killed.
Even the Israelis?
No, I believe so. No, I don't.
There was one bright piece of news from Amman today. The guerrillas released an American Air Force sergeant attached to the embassy whom they had kidnapped a week ago. An embassy official said Sergeant Irvin Graham of Ambrose, Georgia, is all right. Frank? President Nixon, who has ordered armed guards aboard many American planes, today asked Congress for $28 million to pay the first 2,500 of them for a while. The Federal Aviation Administration has indicated the guards will cost about $20,000 a year each, and that 4,000 of them will be needed, and that's $80 million a year.
Could you tell me if the apartment is still available? It is available.
Nerves, stress, headache pain. When you feel one of those headaches building, Anacin has what it takes to relieve headache pain and its tension. An exceptional formula that sets off a chain reaction of relief as pain leaves, easing its tightness and nervous pressure. That's how Anacin relieves headache pain and its tension. Try Anacin.
Before you take anything for your cold, you should know this. Dristan tablets can relieve more virus cold symptoms than cold capsules. Capsules work on these symptoms, contain no aspirin for these. But Dristan does it all, with antihistamine and decongestant for sneezes, congestion, and runny nose, plus a full dose of aspirin for fever, headache, and body aches. Dristan tablets can relieve more virus cold symptoms than capsules. Dristan does it all.
NBC Nightly News continues after this announcement.
Hello, I'm Eve, and I live here in the Garden of Eden, and it's a really groovy place with lots of juicy apples hanging around. Did you know that apples make you wise? Well, Ocean Spray mixed up a lot of apples with some cranberries, and they call the stuff Ocean Spray cranapple juice. Groovy. Sure, the cranberries make it tangy, but largely it's apple juice, so I don't see why Ocean Spray doesn't call it apple cran instead of cranapple. Ocean Spray, wise up.
By midnight, there could be strikes against the nation's railroads, and workers could walk out of General Motors plants. The law gives the government a role in the rail dispute. President Nixon could halt a strike for 60 days. But he has reached no decision, and the Labor Department says he won't until midnight, if then. Mediator W.J. Ussery said both sides are far apart, the situation is hopeless, and they're not able to reach a settlement. Rail strikes have threatened twice during the Nixon administration. Each time he delayed them 60 days. And there were negotiations today between General Motors and the auto workers, but few can be found who think a strike can be avoided. The last public word from the union was that a strike at midnight was certain. Some workers have already walked out of plants in Massachusetts and in Canada.
If there is a strike, and if it is a selective one, that is not against GM plants supplying Ford and Chrysler, the president does not expect serious nationwide economic disruption unless the strike runs into 6 weeks or more. The White House is more concerned about the size of the ultimate agreement and its effect on the administration's anti-inflation drive. In any event, the president does not intend to involve himself in the automobile negotiations. He believes it's better for government to stay out of such matters as long as it can. Also, contract negotiations in the automobile industry have long been among the most sophisticated. where the companies in the union have been able to work out their problems by themselves. Herbert Kaplow, NBC News, at the White House.
The rate of industrial production, the output of mines and factories and the like, remains almost stagnant. It has hardly changed in 4 months. The new figures were released today. They show a drop in August of 0.2% below July. John?
In school news, the authorities in Bogalusa, Louisiana, today closed all the public schools in town after fights broke out between black and white students at a high school. In Philadelphia, there has been a temporary settlement of the teachers' strike, and 11,000 teachers went back to school today. But there were still problems with teacher strikes in a number of cities, including Toledo, Ohio, Hammond, Indiana, and Nashua, New Hampshire. And in Houston, there is a problem with Mexican Americans, Chicanos, as they call themselves.
Houston was under a court order to desegregate its schools this fall. But when classes began, it was apparent that schools which had been white in past years would pretty much remain that way. The integration ordered by the court was largely achieved by mixing black children with Mexican American children. This could happen because, at least here in Houston, the courts have ruled that Mexican Americans are indeed white and that they are entitled to no special consideration as a minority group. A U.S. appeals court has okayed the school integration plan here. Mexican American leaders were furious. They led picketing to demand recognition as a minority group with special problems. They charged the integration plan was a sham, that they were being used, and they called for a Mexican American boycott of the public schools. They received some church support, and within a week had enrolled 2,500 Mexican American children in schools of their own. They called them strike or huelga schools. They say these schools, which aren't good schools, will continue until Mexican Americans get special treatment in the Houston public schools.
You and I know that the Mexican American has more problems in many, many respects than the blacks have. And they seem to have been overboard to alleviate the problems of the black and have not taken into consideration any of the problems of the Mexican American.
The Mexican Americans in this community were quite happy in the dual system to be classified as white so that they didn't go to school with blacks. Now that there's no longer a dual system, they find, since they live in the same neighborhoods, that they have to go to school together, and this has created some problems.
The huelga schools are still operating. Tonight, the Houston School Board will be asked again to support the Mexican Americans' fight for legal recognition as an oppressed minority group. Don Oliver, NBC News, reporting.
This table is transparent as glass, but because it's made of acrylics, it's a lot tougher. Now, Johnson announces an acrylic floor finish, Future. You use it like wax, but it's tougher than wax. Acrylics make Future transparent and keep it transparent even in corners. Acrylics make Future tough for a shine that holds up even in heavy traffic. Get Future, the acrylic floor finish, tougher than wax.
Week after week after week, a woman polishes her furniture, so that in a few months' time, she's put on this much polish and ends up polishing the polish instead of the furniture. But not so with new self-cleaning Favor. Favor cuts through old polish and dirt. Now, if Favor can clean up this mess, it'll take care of any build-up problem you have and give you a fresh wax shine each time you dust. So clear up your build-up problems. Try new Favor with lemon wax.
Mrs. Nguyen Thi Binh, who is the chief Viet Cong delegate at the Paris Peace Talks, said today that her delegation is still ready for private talks with the Americans, but not with the South Vietnamese, which won't help much. Dr. Carl McIntyre, who has invited Vice President Key of South Vietnam to come here for a rally next month, says Key is coming and that when he talks, according to McIntyre, he will out Agnew. In the war in Cambodia, the Cambodian army has had its first serious contact with the enemy at a place called Tang Kok. The Cambodians fell back, calling it a withdrawal and not a retreat. Governor Reagan of California today signed into law a bill which prohibits the busing of school children without parental consent. The Senate today approved $585 million to be spent, if the House approves, on training doctors who will be general practitioners, not specialists. The stock market closed lower, possibly due to the threat of auto and rail strikes. The Dow Jones Industrial Index dropped nearly 5 points, and the value of an average share of common stock lost 18 cents. The American Exchange Index was off a fraction. There was a brief rally at the middle of the day, prompted by the news that the First Pennsylvania Bank in Philadelphia was dropping its prime rate from 8 to 7.5%. But that optimism faded when New York banks said they wouldn't go along. Frank?
There have been complaints from certain segments of the citizenry that of late, anyone big enough to lift a guitar, bright enough to find his way to a microphone, and brash enough to try to sing can become a recording star. The Philadelphia Eagles football players are all big, some of them are bright and some of them are brash, but witness what happened when KYW-TV filmed them as they tried to record an album of Christmas songs. It is not recorded that eagles which fly and hunt well can even sing. The Philadelphia Eagles, who have not been playing football well, were finally recorded trying to sing. Thank you and good night for NBC News.
Marlboro country. Come to where the flavor is. Come to Marlboro country.
It would just, don't, the thing, if all this goes, if you don't let the thing, if it don't, it would just, don't, whatever, don't, just don't, if all this goes, don't let it happen without you.